Hello, this is Bob. This video is for the students I had last week, where we wrote a fairly simple web-based game using JavaScript and some other technologies as well. This video is to go over what we did and show you how you can use it on your own computer. Yeah. Okay, so going to the website that you guys used, it was last week, and most of you put it on your mobile phones like iPhone, Android, or iPad, and that's where it works best. Um, we'll go and do a little review, quick review. It's called Catch Me If You Can, is the game we wrote. And we'll click Start here. And you'll see these things are bumping around all over the place. You got to try and catch it. Oh, if you catch it, you get a point. Oops. You get a point. Otherwise, you don't. So this game works a lot better on an iPad or an iPhone, where or an Android where you can use your finger to tap. Works a lot better. That's what you guys did last week, and I know you had a lot of fun. So we're going to do now is we're going to kind of go over. We're going to look at the what the program looks like. There's a couple of ways you can get at the program. First of all, there's a download button here. So let's just go and let's do the download. I'll show you how to do this, download it to your computer. Just click on this download button. It's going to download it. And let's take this right here. So put it in your download folders. Okay. Here's my download folders. Now this says one because I have a prior version of it. Once in your download folders, you can just double click on it. And then it says catch me. You can drag that over to your documents folder where it'll be. Once it comes down, click on documents and you should see it in there. And to use it with a web browser, all you have to do is double click the file and it'll pop open in your browser. And there it is. And now you can play it yourself as well. Okay. Now, we're going to take a look at the look at the code on this thing. If you're using Windows, what you can use, and I'll try and show this on the Mac as well, you can open it with something called Notepad. It's built in to Microsoft Windows to edit programs. It'll come up here and you'll see all the source code that did it here. Now, this is a web game. So be considered, because it's doing something dynamic, it's considered a web application. Web applications come in here are made up, they're actually made up in three parts. I put two here initially, they're made up three parts. And I'll go over the three parts. One is called Hypertext Markup Language, or HTML. And what that is that sort of gives you what we call basically the user interface or the presentation of the website or app, but it doesn't look very nice. There's something else called, to make it look a little bit nicer, it's called CSS, or cascading style sheets. Okay. And then the third part, which is really the brains or the intelligence of the application, is JavaScript. That's what we're trying to learn, is JavaScript. So we'll come back over here to the source code. This is not very easy to read because it's in something called Notepad. I'm going to switch over. There's another editor that you can use, which is a little bit nicer. You can download it for free, and I'm going to use that because it's be easier to just show you the examples. It's called Notepad++. It's like an enhanced Notepad. I'll click on it, and it brings it up. It's a little bit nicer. You can put in a larger font. It also kind of color coordinates stuff. So let's look at the application we have here. This right here is called, this is the HTML right there. That's basically the presentation. And you can look at some things. If we go back over to the browser, back over the browser second, let me move this over here. It's got some things like up here, it says my page. Well, that's kind of silly. So let's fix that. So I'm going to change the title here from my page to catch me. I'm going to put an exclamation mark there. Catch me. So now if I save that by going to file and save, it saved it already, and do a refresh, now you see the title up there says catch me. Over here, we got catch me if you can with 3 exclamation marks. Maybe I decide, oh, that's too many exclamation marks. So I want to get rid of one of them. Backspace and save it. right? Then if we refresh the browser, you see it's gone, right? Now, some of the other things we have in here is you can control the speed. Right now, I think the default is 200. We'll start it. Okay, it keeps going. Faster, right? Faster. So you control the speed. If you want more of a challenge, you give it a lower number, right? Just give it a lower number if you want faster speed. Now it's going popping all over the place. So, and this is all programmable. So let's get into this JavaScript. Here's the JavaScript code that does this. Now, this was a later version of the program when you said, a lot of students said, oh, can we have more than one? Why is it just one? So I added some. And then to do that, I used something called an array. So this is a more complicated version. We're going to go back to the simpler version. Let me go bring that up. Where is it? Where are you? Okay, here we go. Okay, this says V1. A little simpler. I'm doing this because it'll be easier to explain the JavaScript code because the sort of second version that we did to have multiple buttons to catch or avatars to catch required a little fancier programming using something called an array, which I'll explain. And I've got it over here, and I will just double click it. So this brings up the earlier version. We go start. Now we've just got one. I'll stop it. Let's look at the simpler version first. So the simpler version is basically the same. Here is the style sheets that I mentioned remember, there's 3 parts to a web application, or the front end is referred to very often. HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So here's a little bit of CSS. This is basically setting some formatting values, very simple formatting values. One is the size of an image, which we're not actually using an image. So let's go down here to the JavaScript. Start is true or false. So when you go to start, true or false, it means yes or no, basically. False is no, true is yes. And this is just a variable that determines whether you're playing the game or not. I don't think we're actually using these fields. So another thing here, this is the speed field. So that's the speed field right there, right? The speed field, this is a JavaScript variable. Speed is basically, it has to get a reference to this field right here in order to use that value. So the way it gets a reference is it uses this document, get element by ID, speed, which if you look up here on line 25, right there, ID equals speed. So now JavaScript can get a reference to this field that says speed, get a reference to it. By getting a reference, that means it can get its value. We'll see how that comes into play later on. The points up here, this is it. Now, next one says div count, get element by ID, div count. If we look up here, you've got, this is what's known as this is HTML here, but JavaScript is going to get a reference to it so that right now it says 0.0. When I click on it and I get a point, that value is going to increase. JavaScript is increasing it. But in order for JavaScript to change the value up there, it has to have a reference to it. The third one is the catch me button. That's this button down here that says catch me. All right, that button right there. Let's refresh this thing there. That's that button right there that says catch me. Now, what JavaScript is going to do dynamically is it's going to move the button all over the page randomly, and then it's also going to hide it and show it. Now, when we click on this button that says start right there, go back to the page. Here is that button, start, same thing. If I change this to from start to let's play, let's say, for example, I want to just call it let's play. Then come back over to the browser and I refresh the browser. Now it says let's play. So what does this here do? It says let's play. So buttons, when you click on them, they do something. So right here it says on click, which means when you click the button, do this. Game with an open paren and close paren. What is that? That's calling down here in the JavaScript area, here, game, on line 40. It's called a function. A function is just a group of code that will execute when you call it. And here we're calling it by clicking on the button. Now the catch me, when it jumps all over the screen, you're also trying to click on it. On the mobile devices, you're using your finger to do it, but it doesn't matter. It's still considered a click. And then it's going to go down to a function called catch me. So if we scroll further down here, we see we've got a function called catch me. That's what gets executed when you do that, right? Here, what are we doing to start the game? What we're doing here is we're changing start, right? So this says start equals exclamation start. What that means is that if false, change to true. If true, change to false. Okay, so now saying start. Have you started the game? If you have, speed, the variable speed, is getting it from this field up here, which is a reference to the speed field right there. So, we are here. Getting that, and here it's got to turn it into a number, an integer number, because it's not necessarily. This console.log is just what we call for debugging, right? It's a debug, we call it debugging. Show the output in the browser. Oops, my spelling is terrible. Console. I'll show you how that works in a moment here. Console speed, right? I'm going to do a right click here and go down to something that says called inspect. Then on the left here, you're going to see something here, it's console, right? So you're going to see that value show. All right, let's see, hide button. And now, in order for the game to work, it's got to randomly move it around. So the speed is, this set interval tells the computer, or JavaScript's telling the computer to, at a given interval, do something. And right here, we're saying, well, if we're playing the game, that's what start means. Hide the button. And it's going to do that according to this speed value. Now, this speed value of 200 is 1/5 of a second. Computers operate in milliseconds. A millisecond is 1/1000th of a second. So 1,000 milliseconds is 1 second. 500 milliseconds is a half a second. So 200 milliseconds is 1/5 of a second. That means that every 1/5 of a second, JavaScript is going to call this function called hide button, which is right down here. Now, what's it doing? Hide button to say, well, if the button's hidden, it's going to do something. It's going to get two values randomly. The way this thing bounces all over the field, is using what's called a random number generator. What this is doing is it's getting two random values. And it's getting a random value here. Get random value from 1 to 150. That's what that is. The second one is saying get a random value from 1 to 200. It's going to get those random values. The random values are being stored in variables called left and top. Why? Because what we're going to do is the button, the catch me button, we're going to change its position on the form based on those values. So what are those values? The left is going to be all the way over to the left, where you see like all the way to the left, where you see points. The top is going to be all the way to the top. So this catch me button is going to be randomly moved around the page between 1 and 150 or 2 and 200. The reason I use these values is because most of you are playing this thing on an iPhone. And you've only got a certain screen size. So now what are we doing here? This block here is using some CSS means show the button. That will show the button. And then here, this means hide the button. Now down here, we've got the same thing with the flip, with the hidden. It says, if true, make false. Otherwise, make true. That's what that means. Now, here's the catch me part. That means if you manage to catch it and click on that button or tap it with your finger, this function is going to get called. This function is doing a couple of things. One thing is it's going to increase the number of catches, I guess you call this, catches. And now it's going to update that place on the form. You see where it says points here and count. Now going back up here, count starts at 0. And then it's going to update this here. So let's see. That didn't work. I say, you know what? I'm going to change this. I'm going to stop this. I'm going to make this a little bit easier for me because to show you what's happening. Ooh, what's happening? What's going on there? I thought, let's stop that. Still going pretty fast. Why is it doing that? Hold on for a second. Why is it doing that? There's speed. Oh, let's get a thing here. Let's say play. It shows page. Okay, speed is 200. Stop. Then I get 2000. Still going pretty fast though. What's happening? Oh, let's go back there. Here. Oh, am I playing the wrong one? Hold on for a second. This is catch me. Which one am I looking at? Oh, I'm playing the wrong one. That's why the speed's not changing. Hold on for a second. Okay, we want this catch me one. This one right here. Okay. All right. So now if I make sure we change this to the right one. Yeah, it's the right one now. Let's play. Stop. 2000. Let's put the inspect here. You can see what's going on. Hear that. What's going on? It shouldn't be going so. I think it should be a little slower. That's 2 seconds. That should be like 5 seconds. It's going kind of slow, fast. Stop it. What's going on? Let's see. Getting the speed. Speed. Okay. Should be going a lot slower. Why is that? This is called debugging a program. I'm going to make this much larger. That's speed. I say 5,000. Catch me. That should be like every. Oh, okay. Probably gonna take 5 seconds. It looks like it is going slower now. Like, oh, I'm sorry. Play. This thing's not even moving. This thing now it's there. Okay, now it's moving much more slowly. So it's moving much more slowly. So you see, when I click on it, the reason I wanted to slow down the speed is so I could demonstrate how the points here get updated. So every time you hit the catch me part, then this function gets in here, and we could even put a console log in here as well if we want. So if we look at what's going on here, say hide button. I'll make this a little bit faster. I think if I do it every 2 seconds, I should be able to catch it. Okay. So you can see one thing here, the speed says 5,000. And you see this another one that said hide button 6334. Where is it? That's right in here. Okay, right there. Now, let's see. Let's put a console log in there. Am I in the right one? Yes, I am. Console.log. You caught me. And again, where this is going to show is in the console log. And let's do this here. Let me make this 2,000. That should be okay. Let's play. Now, if I hit catch me, caught it. It's going to go slower. Catch me. So it gets updated. And you can also see in our console log here, and this is really useful when you're debugging programs. So let's stop there. That was the original version. Now, the second version, as you guys said, that's not challenging enough. I want more buttons. So we add more buttons. We go this one here. And I will open the one that we downloaded. This one. This is the current version. Okay. Now start here. Now you can see there's a whole bunch of buttons here. All right. Let's take a look at that one. That one's a little more complicated. I'm going to give you both versions to play with. So in the second version, because we've got more than one button and we wanted to have flexibility and having as many buttons as we want, you have to use something called an array. Let's go over our notes here. We talked about the random number generator. The random number generator is what makes that thing bounce around the form, right? And some other stuff, also the set interval for the timing and stuff, but that's kind of key to getting the game to work and have that thing just bounce around all over the place. An array is in a list of things. When you've only got one, you don't need an array. But if you want two or more, the best way to do that usually is an array. So there's no button here that says catch me. We put this area here, it's called a div, which can be referenced, excuse me, can be referenced by JavaScript right there. Again, we reference it by saying document.getID. So now JavaScript has a reference to that area of the web page. A lot of this is the same start. Here's the speed. It's defaulting to 200. Number here, I'm saying number of buttons. This is new. So I'm saying here I want 3 buttons. We could make this more dynamic, and I could give you something on the form to say, how many buttons do you want? Count, that's the same. A lot of this stuff is the same. Now, here are the arrays. These are being, we call initialized as an empty array. So this right here is an empty array. By the way, this right here means it's a comment. A comment is just you're giving some explanation as to what you did. This next one is here is using a loop. It's called a for loop. So loops do something X number of times or until some condition is met. In this case, I'm saying, I want you to do this 3 times because number of buttons is 3. So this here basically says, do this 3 times. If I made that 4, it would do it 4 times. So what is it doing? In here, JavaScript is saying dynamically creating buttons because we don't know the actual number because we can change it. So it's dynamically creating a button. It's setting some what we call properties. Relative is what also allows you to move it around the form because you're saying that this button is not stuck in one place. You can move it around. Now, here's the inner HTML. This means what is the label of the button going to say? Display none means invisible. That means initially the button's invisible. Now, in the first one, right here, we said on click equals catch me. You can't do that now because it's got to be dynamic. So now we're doing something different. B represents the button. We're saying to add an event listener. That means you're going to tell JavaScript to wait for something to happen or to listen for something to happen. In this case, we're saying click, which is going to call catch me. And now catch me is getting an additional value, this I. The I is what they call the index into the array. We are adding the button to the div up here. We're also putting it into that array, this hidden to the array. Also, the catch me has to go into the array. Now here we are setting an interval for each button. And to the hide button function, we have to add the index as well. We're adjusting the speed by a calculation, a simple calculation. Much of the rest, so that for loop is what allows you to put as many buttons on the form as you want. And then the remainder is somewhat similar here. Game start in, that's kind of the same. Now here, in the hide button here, we have to pull the button. We have to say which one. This basically says, which one are you talking about? In the first example, there was just one, right? So you didn't have to ask that. So instead of saying hidden, which was just what we call a simple variable, now we have an array or list of values. So we have to say which one is hidden. Okay, it could be 1, 2, or 3. Again, the random valueness is the same. We're adjusting the left and top position again, but again, because there's more than one button, which one? That's what this IDX or index determines. Oops. Much of the rest is the same. The only difference is here, we have to say which one. There's 3 of them now. Which one? That's what the index determines. That index will be 1, 2, or 3. It'll actually be 0, 1, or 2. That's talk about that. The catch me button basically works the same, and the colors works the same. So this is more complicated JavaScript. It involves things like arrays and loops, which is, gets a little more advanced. I'm going to give you guys in the link to download it. You'll have both versions to play with. I would suggest starting with the easier one. And then we go to here and start, and you can see there's 3 buttons. Okay, stop. Now, if I change this thing here to 3, I can change this to 4. Let's try to change that to 4. And then you can play. Oh, then we see start now. Can we see 4 buttons? I'm not sure if we see. It's hard to say. I'm not sure if we see 4 buttons. Do we see 4 buttons? It's not really hard to tell if there's 4 buttons or not. I save this 4 buttons. And go through the loop. Let me make it slower. Let's make the speed a lot slower so we can see it. Let's stop. Let me even slower, real slow, so we can see this thing. Let's see we determine the speed. Speed. We're running the right one. Catch me. Catch me. That should be right. Oh, maybe not. Hold on for a second. I don't think this is the right one. Shoot. This should be in our documents folder. Sorry, I opened the wrong one. Let's open this one. We'll do 2000. I think I see what I see 4 now. We got 4 now. Good. So another modification you can do for this, and then we'll leave it at that, is up here. So right now, this is like hard-coded to 4. What if we want to have num buttons? So let's go here. Number 5,000. I don't think you want to do that many. Let's call this num buttons. Okay. And put 5,000. That's going to be a challenge. Okay, so down here we have num buttons here. So this will have to be changed to let, so we can change it. Then in here, this says num buttons. Okay. So this is doing this immediately. So should probably do this differently. we should do this in here because, okay, I'll explain why. We don't want it to happen immediately. And so now it'll be, we have num buttons. We'll say num buttons is equal to document element by ID num buttons. First, okay, this needs to be parsed into an integer. And hopefully this will work. Does nothing. Ooh, what's going on? This is debugging code. Stop. Oh, it's saying speed is in the end. Why is that? Num buttons, num button ID, num buttons. Num buttons. Why would that be? Oh, I didn't give it a value. Okay. We should give these things some what called default values as well. Like value equals 200. And we'll give this a default value of 3. Okay. And this is still not doing anything. Why is that? Again, this is called debugging, is what this is called. All right, so game, we call this click goes to game. Should get that. Saying NAN, why is it still saying that? NAN. Did I misspell this? No. It's not like that for some reason. I don't know why. That's floor. I'll get rid of that for a second. What's going on? Oh, I know why. It'd be a very stupid mistake. Here, you have to say, what do you want? This gives you a reference to the button, but what do you want from it? You want the value. Value is what you want from it. That's what I did wrong. Ah, there we go. Stop. So now if I change this thing, I say, okay, I want 4 buttons. Got 4 buttons. Let me make the speed a lot higher so you can see it. Okay, 4 buttons. You can see 4 buttons. Stop. Let's say 5. Say 5. What if you say 50? Oh boy. Let's see what happens then. Can't really tell. Oh boy, look at that. Oh boy. Okay, so you get the idea. So you can modify the program and we probably should have put a label on this one, by the way. Said something like number of buttons. Okay. So you get the idea of doing that here. And it's kind of a lot to talk about. Um, but you can ask questions. I do have a YouTube channel. It's on my YouTube channel. That's where you're getting it from. You can subscribe to it and ask questions on that channel. If it's okay with your parents, only if it's okay with your parents. If not, your teacher has my email address. And I hope you have fun with it. I hope you had fun with it. I had fun teaching, guys. And, I will be posting some more videos on my channel. They're all tech oriented. Some of them may be too advanced for you, but I'll try to have some more beginner stuff as well. Thanks, guys. Have fun with it.